Firstly, obviously as you said in your message, I'm deeply impacted by some of the stuff that's going on in the world, in particular in Iran. Um, you know, for those who don't know, my background is Iranian, and I was born just a couple of months after the revolution started. So I've pretty much only known the Iran that mostly most of the people, most of us know. But so I've been deeply impacted by that. And although I've never been back to Iran, and I see myself pretty much as an Australian. I'm more Aussie than Iranian, but that culture is still in my blood. And every time I see there's thousands of people who have been killed and continue to get killed, and in the way, in particular, in the way they're getting killed, I feel the pain of those people, and the courage for them to continue to go onto the streets of Iran, and even though they know they're going to be met with live bullets, I feel all that. And and a lot of Iranians around the world are really feeling a lot of it because it's painful. It's painful. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that take place in this world, but obviously this one is particular close to my heart, because of my heritage, but also because just seeing a government who are not even Iranian, a Islamic Republic regime, who are actually Arabs, they're not even Iranians, who are taken over our country and forced Islam upon us and now are killing us. That's really, really painful, for me, and I'm assuming it'll be painful for a lot of people to witness that. Um, so there's no hiding from that, and I'm not looking to hide from that. It is painful. Um, However, and I don't think I've had to process anything like this. This is 47 years of, you know, baggage, collective. Like I haven't been carrying this baggage myself, but as a collective of the Iranian people, it's 47 years of baggage of trauma. And look, there's lots of other things going on in this world. It's not just, but this one was close to my heart because yeah, just because of everything I just explained right now. Doesn't make one worse or better, or you know, you look at what happened to the Jews, and you look at what's happening in Palestine. Stuff's going on in the US. Someone just got killed and they weren't met, by ICE. And there's lots of things happening in the world. So, but here's the thing, and I, as part of duality, there's going to be always both sides. There's always going to be two sides. There's always going to be, we have, I talk about duality. There's good, there's bad, there's right, there's wrong, there's hot, there's cold. In fact, to know one, you must have the other. Without the other, you don't know one. If you go back to the work and the WTF, to know love, you must have an absence of love. To know love, you must have fear. The Iranian people have had 47 years of fear and suppression for them to realize what love is as a collective and to go out in the streets and go, we're going to overthrow this government. Enough is enough. That's 47 years to work out what love was. They've had an absence of that for 47 years. So, and to keep it with this work, in the WTF, I talk about, that there's a hot, there's a cold. In order for you to know what hot is, you need to know what cold is. You won't know what hot is unless you know what cold is. So in duality, there's always going to be two sides. Whatever you like, no matter what, there's always going to be two sides. There's going to be the left, there's going to be the right, you know? The key is if you are on your path of consciousness, it brings you have an ability to come to the center. And I refer to this in the WTF as the seesaw. I say when you're at the edge of the seesaw, the up and down is far greater than when you are at the center of the seesaw. Now, where's the center of the seesaw? It's within you. Okay. Now, when you're at your center, you don't go up and down, right? And as I've mentioned, it doesn't mean the world doesn't go up and down. Okay. Or if you like, your up and down is very small. A lot of us have got kids here. You go on the seesaw with the kids, you sit on the edge, you go up and down. Sometimes I've got two kids and they're going on either side. I jump in the middle and my feet are going up and down this much. But their up and down is far greater. So the more left you are, the greater your up and down. The more right you are, the greater your up and down. If I was to put it in that way. The key is to find your center. And you know, in duality, you gotta understand there's different movements that are taking place in order for us to have this dualistic experience. You got to understand that you couldn't, because there's a part of your brain, I'm sure, like mine has in the past, gone, why are we here to play this game? Why are we here to experience this duality? Because remember, if you can wrap your mind around it, in order for duality to exist, both sides must coexist. Or sometimes they don't coexist. Sometimes both sides will go to war with each other. Right? But for duality to exist, there's got to be two. And I often, and I'm relating this to the worldly events, but in the WTF, I relate it to up. If there's an up, there's a down. If there's a hot, there's a cold. If there's a right, there's a wrong. The closest I get to it is I say if there's a peace, there's a war. Both exist. For duality to exist, there must be two. There's a male, there's a female. There's masculine, there's feminine. Right? There's a night, there's a day. There's a winter, there's a summer. Everything is two. And if you look at Newton's law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if I push against the wall, I'm going to be met with a response that is going to push back to me equally. You can't get out of this duality. The only way to get out of that duality is come back to yourself. Look at this. Why is my hand going up? I didn't touch anything.
I was going to say, do you have a question for yourself? I have a
Maybe.
question though.
When you did that, the hand popped up.
Oh, right.
Oh, weird.
So if you comprehend, if you go back to the work, and this is what your question was, Kelly, it was related to the work. If you go back to work, you got to understand that that's what duality is. Now, here's the thing. If there was no duality, if you could not experience duality, there would be no you and me. In duality, which is also something that we have time in duality as well. We have past and future, again too. But if you look at past and future, you also have the present. Again, where's the present? It's the middle of the seesaw. So in all circumstances, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, what's going on in your life, the key is to always find your center. Now, for me, I find my center by bringing my attention back to myself. Okay. And right now my attention is scattered everywhere. What's going on? I can't help it. I won't lie. I'm continuously on social media trying to find out what's happening in Iran. How many more people are dying? When is America going to attack? When is Israel going to attack? Can you imagine a country of people begging America and Israel to attack us, please? When are you going to attack? Every morning that we get up as Iranians going, has Trump attacked? People in there prepared to die. Anyway, see, that's when I get back into the story. So the key is, for me, is to continuously get back to my center, and it's to bring my attention back to myself, back to my breath, close my eyes, and get back to that center ground. Now, people have different methods and different techniques and different ways of doing that, and that's a different conversation. But you must do whatever you got to do to bring your attention back to yourself, not outside of yourself. And when you bring your attention back to yourself, you have the opportunity to find your center again. Now, any response that you have from your center would then be a response that's not fueled by the love and the fear that we measure in duality. Because remember, I said if there's a love, there's a fear, but that love is not the love that I often refer to as the real love, because that love has an opposite. Because the real love doesn't have an opposite. Why? Why does the real love not have an opposite? Because the real love is infinite. And something that is infinite doesn't have an opposite. There's no such thing as, oh, the opposite of infinite is finite. No, that's something we interpret mentally, intellectually. Something that is infinite has no opposite. So when I often talk about the real love or following the real love or becoming the real Kelly, I sometimes say, or the big Christina, that's the infinite. And this is not something that's outside of you. It's not something that you're going to attain when you die. It's not going to be something that you will be rewarded when you're good. This is the real you. And that part doesn't have an opposite. That's what we refer to as oneness. Now, I don't know, it doesn't matter what you believe in. You believe in Jesus or in Buddha or I don't know, God. When you're being the real you, that is when you're being the closest version of whatever it is that you believe in. So if we go back to the WTF again and we talk about oneness, we must remember duality is part of this whole construct. And we must remember that there's a reason, if I can call it a reason, or a purpose for duality to exist. And I don't know if you remember or not. And sometimes it's worth revisiting the WTF to see if you do remember. But if you go back to the WTF, and I talk about in the beginning, and of course there's no beginning or end. That's something that's dualistic. I'll just say that for my effect of storytelling. But in the beginning, there was just one infinite energy. And this one infinite energy is infinite. And that infiniteness, if I can use that word, is the real love. If the closest thing that you're experiencing to that is the real love, and it's something that you experience when you're completely in your center or in the now. If you're in time, it's when you're in the now. If you're in the physical world, it's when you're bringing your attention back to yourself and you're bringing yourself back to your center. But if you go back to the WTF, I say that as much as this energy, this being, this entity, whatever you want, however you want to describe. I just like to say it's energy. It's infinite energy. That infinite energy is love. And there's a lot of religions who describe that infinite energy and describe that love. So that part's not new. But make no mistake, what I'm talking about is not to do with any religion whatsoever. I'm just saying it's infinite energy. And the one thing I say in the WTF, as much as, and this doesn't even make sense, because what I'm about to say, it kind of feels contradictory, because what I say in the WTF is, what's the one thing an infinite, and you'll see it's not contradictory in a second. What's the one thing an infinite being cannot have or does not have? Now, immediately your mind go, what? How can it lack anything? Because it's infinite. Infinite means it's all encompassing. It's full power. It's, no parameters, no beginning, no end. It doesn't lack anything. Yes, you're right. But if I can say it in infinite land, what's the one thing an infinite being cannot have that you do? It's another infinite being. Because something that's infinite means it's only one. Just one. It's impossible for it to be two. Because if you say it's two, there's a beginning and an end for there to be two, and therefore both are not infinite. There's only one infinite energy. But if you look at that one infinite energy, the only thing it cannot have is another infinite. But you look at the duality and you start to realize why duality is here. And you start to realize, oh, there is multiple infinites. We are all, as Rumi says, we are all a drop of the, what does Rumi say? You're not the drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in the drop. Persian poet, by the way. You're not the drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in the drop. In other words, we, or in duality, are drops of the ocean. There can only be a perception or an experience of being a drop in the ocean in duality. Without duality, I wouldn't experience myself as being Amir Zogi, as a male, and Kelly wouldn't experience herself being Kelly as a female. Or whatever you identify as. You see? Duality must exist for there to be two. But what if Kelly or Christina realized that she's actually not the drop? Because she continues to not look at all the other drops and all the things that's going on in the world. I'm not saying being in denial of all the things that are going on in the world. In particular, with what's going on right now for Iran, I'm not in denial of what's going on. But I know I want to operate from a centered space, so I keep bringing myself back to my center. Otherwise, I can fall for all the different games and roles that are currently played, and before I know it, I become part of that story. But imagine Christina realized that she's not the drop. And she started to look for herself within herself. In other words, the drop started to stop looking outside and stop looking in duality and start looking within. What is Christina as the drop going to look? What is she going to find or realize if she goes within? Oh, shit. I'm not this drop. I am the entire ocean in this drop, as Rumi so beautifully says. You're not the drop in the ocean, you're the entire ocean in this drop. Now, Christina is no longer just a drop because she realized she's the whole ocean. She's now what I refer to as an infinite being in a finite world. She's now the one, like in the Matrix. And what happens if Jess and Christina goes, hey, Jess, you're not the drop. This is not who we are, just this body. There's more to us. And let's say Jess realizes, oh, she looks within her drop. and realize, oh, I'm not the drop. I'm the entire ocean in this drop. Well, what do you have? Suddenly you have two infinite beings. So I'm just bringing your awareness into realizing that in duality, both will exist. Depends on how far you go on the edge of the seesaw, will depend on how big your up and downs and your troughs are. As you get closer to your center, which is you're doing work on yourself, whatever that work is, you're doing the work on yourself, it's bringing you back to your center. To truly transcend the seesaw, you must leave whatever it was that got you to the center at the door. And that is a deeper conversation, but I'm just saying that whatever you use to get to where you are, you need to leave that behind. Ultimately, to become the infinite version of yourself, whatever path, whatever took you there, you must leave at the door. You can't take it with you. Just like you can't take anything with you when you leave this body. Yeah, it's like, well, what do you mean leave it behind? I'm not leaving behind anything. Well, when you die, you're going to leave everything behind, including this body. This costume that you're wearing, you're going to leave this behind. So what I'm describing is what in spirituality is often referred to as dying before you die. There's a part of you that dies, and in order for that part of you to die, and before you truly live and you truly awaken, you have to leave everything behind. Which is another conversation. But I guess if you wanted to know how this relates to what's going on in the world, well, there's obviously a big transformation about to come because the seesaw is like, right? So there's a transformation that's taking place in this world. In my OMG series, I talk about that, about the construction and deconstruction of things. Okay, for the construction of something new or the birth of something new, you give up something old. Something old gets destroyed. And I believe what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of things getting destroyed. And for me, personally, or I feel it's not, it's the way of life. It's the way of your being, your mind, the old mind is getting destroyed. And we're going back to, a new mind, as Eckhart Tolle calls it, a new earth. So you're operating from your centered space, from your infinite space. So to me, also, I always trust the process, and I know that everything that's happening is meant to be happening because, and as difficult as that is sometimes to swallow, if it wasn't meant to be happening, it wouldn't be happening. So I always like to trust the process, and this process that I'm going through right now, I trust that process. Yes, Kelly.
Is part of the process sometimes, because I know there's plenty of things that have happened that I haven't felt called to speak up about or haven't necessarily hit me in the same way as certain other things have. And I feel like I do my best to like come back to myself, but then I still feel to speak up on something or post about something or take an action. Um, and maybe sometimes I'm fooling myself, maybe sometimes it is reactive, maybe sometimes it is responsive, but like in what you were just saying, trusting the process and what's about to happen is sometimes part of that process, us engaging, us doing something, us saying something like you're doing about Iran right now. And kind of being both the
Absolutely.
human and the being at the same time.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm not, that's why it's important. I'm not in denial of what's going on. And yes, I am speaking up about it. It's, often I'm feel, you know, I don't know if I call it neutral, but I've done everything. There's a lot of things that happens in and around me in the world. I'm just like, you know, you know, it is what it is. That is terrible, but it is what it is, and that is amazing. But that's also is what it is. Um, yeah, right now in what's happening in Iran, I do feel to speak up about it. That feel like, and it's for me, it's not just about Iran. To be completely honest, um, you know, I feel, for many years, what was happening in Iran or in the Middle East, we all became a little bit numb to it, including me. It's like, well, that's what happens in the Middle East. They're all killing each other, and it's always a war there, and peace in the Middle East is probably just an illusion because it's just that's what we become. I mean, maybe I speak for myself. You become numb to it, and you just like, but when I was 20 minutes from being potentially shot by an Islamic extremist in Bondi Beach with my family. I missed that 20 minutes. Same footbridge we walked straight past 20 minutes earlier. That's now very close to home. So, yeah, I feel to speak up about that. And um, I am, and I'll speak up, but it's very important for me to keep coming back to my center and checking with myself. But I speak up in the way I feel to speak up. Sometimes I'm just sharing other videos. If you look at the things that I've personally shared, it's more related to how I feel about it and like, what the fuck are we doing in this world? Come on. Let's like all the things that are taking place in the world, like they're lessons. And it's like, do we not pick up, just like in our life, all the things that took place in your life, with your friendships, with your family, with your personal life, with your community, you learn lessons and you grow. But as a collective, it's like, are we not learning the lessons? This is not our first rodeo, of killing each other as a world. This happened in World War One, World War Two. This happened to the Jewish community. When are we going to stop? Like that's been my kind of rant. But yeah, it's you do what you feel. It's do I want more people to speak up? Yeah, I do, but I would never ask anyone. It's only if they feel to. That's one of the biggest things that a lot of Iranians are really pissed at the moment because a lot of people that were speaking up for Palestine are not speaking up for Iran. And all the Iranians are like, why are you all going quiet? Like and so they're pissed about that. But to me, it's like, well, you do you, I do me. If you don't feel to speak up, that's entirely up to you. I think everyone's got the right to speak or stay quiet. It's entirely up to you. It's for me, I feel to speak up, so I'm speaking up, no matter what the cost that is for me. I mean, I got Iranian people. I could have been that person in Iran if my parents did not flee the country when they did. That could be me out in the streets, and that could be my kid. Well, it wouldn't be my kids; they're too young. But no, then again, there's been 3-year-olds killed, so who knows? But yeah, look, I think everyone has the right to do whatever they feel to do. And like I said, there's a lot of Iranians coming out and a lot of people coming out and going, why is the Palestine movement, why are they not backing us? Why do they all go quiet? Let's not focus on that, guys. Let them do let them do. Let's focus on our voice and what we're here to do. And now you're like, why are they doing that? Well, why didn't you speak up for the Palestine? They will say the same thing. If you speak up for you do what you do just like everyone has the right to follow their religion, as long as it's a religion of love. I don't believe that Islamic. Just so we're clear, I think a lot of religions are about love, and I think everyone should do do whatever their religion is, follow their own religion, right? I'm not speaking about religion. I'm not a religious person at all, right? Sometimes you know, sometimes people ask my wife, what husband, what's your religion of your husband? Because my wife's Australian, and then they know I'm Persian, and they go, is he religious? And she's like, no, he doesn't. Religion doesn't come out of my mouth. I I'm not religious at all. However, I feel that everyone has the right to follow and to, believe what they want to believe. But I will make this very, very clear. I don't believe that the Islamic Republic um, or the religion that is under Sharia law is a religion. That's not a religion. You want to overthrow the rest of the world, and everyone must be a Muslim. I'm sorry, that's not a religion. Religion is about yourself and your relationship with your God. Got nothing to do with everyone else's relationship with God. What everyone else's relationship is none of your business. And just like I'm like that. It's none of my business what your relationship with God is. So that to me is not a religion. And I know I can get shot down for saying that, like verbally. But I'm sorry, that's not a religion. If you think that you're here to make everyone migrate to your religion, and if they don't, you must kill them. Well, that's not religion, because religion is about love, and religion is about discovering your connection and your relationship with God. It's got to do with you and God. It's got to do with no one else. So, that's my 2 cents on the global stuff. But the most important thing is for me to not go down that road. And well, I will go down that road. If I need to speak about it, I will speak about it. But it's most important thing for me is to remember to come back to my center. Because before I know it, I've lost my way and I'm just the same as everyone else. Because I'm just trying to when I say everyone else, I'm just the same as that ideology that thinks everyone has to be the same as them. Well, no, they don't. We came here to complete each other. We didn't come here to kill each other. We didn't come to compete with each other. We came here to complete. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think there's a lot of wonderful religions, and there's a lot of people who are discovering their connection and their relationship with God. And I just want to make clear, I do believe in God. When I say I'm not religious, I'm not a religious person. I fall under any religion. I do believe in God, and I had a relationship with God when I was like 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. I had continual experiences, if you want to call it. But I realized that those experiences weren't because of any religion. Those experiences were because, of my connection with God. And to me, God is just it's just energy. We just make it into something else. It's infinite energy. Anyway, I will add that in because sometimes I say I'm not religious, and then sometimes people think, oh, is he atheist? Or no, I'm not atheist. I'm not. I do believe in God. And I strong believer there's only one, and it's the one that you individually have a relationship with, and your relationship with God is not the same as someone else's relationship with God. It's something very personal. And you might have an amazing relationship with God, and you think everyone's got to have this same, and then you try to force yourself onto everyone else. No, That's for you and your God. So there's my 2 cents. I would um and I feel that there is a transformation. And like I said, sometimes not sometimes, often from my understanding of nature and the world, when when a new way of being or a new being is coming into existence, there is a construction and deconstruction. There's a deconstruction that takes place. In other words, the old way starts to fall apart and a new way is born. And I feel that there's a transformation that's taking place in the world. And unfortunately, we're going through a lot of pain. And your pain, everyone's pain is different, you know. And yeah, and yeah, if you feel to speak up, yeah, I think you should speak up.